everyone, and welcome to 2020. Today we will be discussing the Associated Board Royal Schools of Music ABRSM Grade 1 violin scales. So to assess exactly what it is we are doing, I've drawn up the scale list, which you can find online under ABRSM. I'll just quickly go through what the requirements are and I'll show you how to do them, fingering and so on. Right. If it means that you are doing a grade 1 ABRSM exam, it probably means that by now you know the first position of the violin really well. In other words, fingers 1 to 4 on all 4 of your strings in the first finger frame, which is this one. Which is the standard one that we learn, or the second finger frame, which is that one. In other words, these two are friends or those two are friends, and that is about the standard finger patterns that one finds in grade 1. Okay, so the first scale requirement is D major, 1 octave, starting on an open string. Right, so that will be our open string of D. Playing 1 octave, right? So D major has an F sharp and a C sharp. Now, when we learn violin, we learn the first finger frame, meaning that our first note we all put down with the first finger is E, right? So that's the first finger on our D string over there. The second finger we put down already is F sharp. That is this finger frame that we learn, right? So F sharp. And then right next to it is G. And then we go on to the next open string, which is A, B, and then we maintain that first finger frame for C sharp, which is our next normal note. And then we end on a third finger, which is D. So that's then going up and then coming down. You simply lift your fingers in that same way that you went up. Right, so you start on your open string as such. Even from the start, to have a good clean tone to all of your notes, listening carefully for intonation, which we'll discuss in greater depth at a later point. Okay, the next scale is A major 1 octave. Now the great thing is, if you can play D major, you can play A major. It's the same thing, only it starts on the A string and then it goes into the E string and comes back, right? So again, we stay in the first finger frame. And therefore, just remember, the thinner your strings, the closer you play to your bridge for a good sound, and obviously the less weight you apply on your bow. So as such. Right, it is important to listen for your notes to ring. If they ring, then you know you are most likely in tune. And by this I mean that if you actually play majority of your notes, such as the A above, and you take your bow away and you still hear it ring, it's in tune. Importantly, to more advanced players that actually know what vibrato is, make sure you don't use vibrato on your scales, as it muffles intonation. Okay, great. E natural minor. Now, a natural minor is a very interesting thing because it's only in grade 1 to 3 and then you do your harmonic and your melodic. So a natural minor is more common in string instruments than in the others because it's actually in our scale syllabus. So the E natural minor is, E minor is the relative and relatives are related. So G major and E minor share 1 sharp. Okay, so this simply means that you'll start on E and you'll play your finger frame, but you'll only have 1 sharp. So in other words, you'll stay in your first finger frame, starting on the first finger, So what did I do there? 1 sharp, meaning that on the A string, your second finger will not be in our first finger frame, but close, as in our second, right? So this is our first finger frame, this is our second finger frame. So E natural minor is a combination of both. So it's normal, first finger, second, 3, on your D string. A string, first finger, second finger, those two are married, third finger, and then fourth finger or open string. I prefer the fourth finger for a better sound. Open string tends to be a little hard on the ear, but to show you both ways that you can do them as such. Right, so now with the open string option, first finger, second finger, third finger, which is normal, A, first finger, lowest second finger, third finger, E. Right. Now it's important to remember for the time being that in scales, the fingering pattern that goes up is the same fingering that comes down. So what goes up must come down. Bit cliche, but there it is. Right. And then it leaves us with our last scale, which is a 2-octave scale, which is G major. Right. Now G major has an F sharp only. So there is no C sharp, right? So G major is often the first scale we learn, which is the open string. However, now we are going to 2 octaves, not 1. So let's just play the 1 octave on G, right? So it's our normal finger frame. Which is our first finger frame, right? Okay. However, on the A string, A, it would be D, C sharp if this were normal, but it's not. There is no C sharp in G major, so it's now becoming close. Okay, so on the first 2 strings, G and D string, you have your first finger frame, and on the second 2 strings, you have your second finger frame, as such. First finger frame, second finger frame. That's where you end, and then you come back. Good. Listening to intonation at every point. That's always important. Intonation, accuracy of your note, does it ring? Right. Okay, so that was the scales. Arpeggios are an interesting thing. And the arpeggios in my advanced playing has saved me much more than my scales have. It is actually something that only includes the first, the third, and the fifth note or scale degree of your scale, right? So in other words, D major would have D, D, E, F sharp would be your third one, F, D, E, F sharp, G, and then A. Right, so you only play the first, third, and the fifth note of your scale, as such. So D is the first one. And then the third note, F sharp, and then the fifth note, which is A, and then the first note again, which is D. Coming back. Which is really, really simple. Now for A major it's the same thing, which I'm not going to demonstrate because our simple fingers are open string. I'll show A quickly. Second finger, open string, third finger, open string, second finger, open string. Right. Great. So I think those are the scales that we'll be discussing today. And then next time I will be discussing scales further. I will be doing a continuation of the E minor arpeggio, the G major arpeggio 2 octaves, and then we're going to slur it. Okay, right. On second thoughts, I'm going to show you the E major, the E minor and the G major arpeggio, which are quite simple, but then we'll leave the slurs for another time in the next video on slurs. Right, so E minor is exactly the same, the first and then the third and then the fifth, which is non-open string, it's B. E, G, B, and then E, which is the first again. Right, so our fingering for this is 1, 3, 1, 4. Now make sure that E is perfectly in tune and you can compare it to your open string next to it. 1, 3, 1. Okay, so that's a simple way to remember the E minor arpeggio. Right, now G major is fairly easy. It is 2 octaves once again. So it works exactly the same as our D and A major arpeggio for the first octave, right? So, as such. Okay, so we've just done G, 1 octave. So now we have to do the second octave, which is B. Right, so B is the third scale degree. Okay, and then the fifth is D again, meaning it's our third finger. And then our second finger for G on the E, which is in our second finger frame. Right, so I'm going to go through these fingers quite obviously, just to make sure that you have this. So this is open string, which is 0, 2, open string, 3. 1, 3, 2, 3, 1, 3, open string, 2, 1. Now my intonation was slightly poor there, but let alone that's also something that even no matter how good you are, it's always something that you need to practice on a string instrument. Okay, so those were the scales. However, they were all separate bows. Okay. And we did them even notes. We can discuss long tonic in the next video on scales. And, oh sorry, that's an email. So on scales, and then we will slur them at a later point when I discuss slurs and what they do. Okay, so importantly to remember about scales is tone, meaning we don't want any airy-fairy, softy sounds like this. Play with, what do we say? Play with determination. Maintaining a good sound. Second, listen for intonation. To practice listening to all your ringing notes, bow and listen if it rings afterwards. If it doesn't ring, you might need to shift your finger slightly to find where it rings best. Yes, does that make sense? Okay, great. If you have any questions, you can post them in the comments below. And best of luck when preparing for your Associated Board Grade 1 scales. Okay, thank you.